I did not initially plan on doing a singular Backlash pay-per-view review, but the show was so striking that I thought I'd change my plans and just go ahead and just dedicate an entire video to talking about Backlash, because I have a sneaking suspicion I'm going to go off on a rant. Many a tangent is going to be happening in this video. Yeah, that pay-per-view was not good. And by not good, I mean bad. And by bad, I mean absolutely fucking dreadful. That show was so bad, I can still smell it almost 24 hours removed from it. It was terrible. Absolutely awful. And the show ran long, so I'm sorry to anybody that had to get up early in the morning for work. I had to get up at 7, so I got a little bit of leeway. So the pay-per-view concluding at 11:30 didn't hurt me too much, but still, it's God, it was such a dry, boring, dull, lifeless show, and then it went late. It's like, oh fuck you, come on. And it's I'll be honest, I haven't been this miserable watching a wrestling pay-per-view since Battleground 2017 last year. That show nearly broke me. It was terrible. But the difference between the two shows is Battleground, I expected to be bad. Which begs the question, why the hell did I watch it in the first place? But, I'm dumb, and, I'm not canceling the network. I'm just not, because the value is too great. Those Clash of Champions and those Saturday Night's main events, man, I'm really digging the fuck out of those. Even the bad shows are worth going back and watching, because it's like, oh god, remember when I was a young kid and I liked this shit? It was great. But Battleground I expected to be bad, because it's like, oh god, we're getting Cena Rusev again, and oh god, Orton and Jinder again in a Punjabi prison match. That isn't going to be good. And sure enough, the show was dreadful. Backlash, I didn't think the card was that bad, so the fact that the show turned out as bad as it did was kind of surprising, and I was thunderstruck by how bad it was. And really, once again, much like Battleground, it was the two main events that really failed to deliver and were really, really bad. And I guess you wouldn't expect them to be as bad as they were, given who was involved, but it was lousy. It was really, really lousy. And I guess I'll just start from the beginning. We opened up the show with by far the best match on the show. They peaked early and then never reached that level again. The Miz versus champion Seth Rollins for the Intercontinental Championship. Really good opener, very good, action-packed. I guess you could argue it was too good, because the rest of the show just wasn't able to live up to it. But I thought both guys did very well. I think Seth right now is killing it. Match-wise, I don't think anybody's as good as him right now in the WWE as far as having really good matches. I mean, when you look at his performance at the gauntlet match that they did on Raw, the opener to WrestleMania, the four-way ladder match, the match with Finn last Monday, I think Seth is killing it right now. I think he's just doing an amazing job in ring, and had another great match with The Miz, who's just great at being this hateable heel. And you get a likable babyface, hateable heel, put them together, give them a nice athletic match, and you get a really strong opener out of it. But like I said, unfortunately, it was probably, I don't want to say it was the only good thing on the show, but it was dangerously close to it. Seth Rollins retained, which I'm okay with. Like I said, I think he's been killing it right now, so why stop the gravy train when it's rolling and going so strong? So, really enjoyed that match. Then after that, we had Nia Jax versus Alexa Bliss, which was pretty much like their WrestleMania match. It was just kind of there. Maybe went a little too long. I'm not really digging the story, and I think that's my biggest problem here. I have a hard time buying Nia Jax as a sympathetic babyface, especially since her run in the company prior to the build to WrestleMania was she's this big giant brute that bullies people, and now she's going to be the poster child for anti-bullying. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't, she did, and nothing about her screams like, likable babyface, big person, like not like Andre. Like when Andre was a babyface, he was extremely likable. When I guess I'll use a Glow example to go into the Netflix show, Michu Picchu. On that show, you look at her and it's like, yeah, she's a babyface. She's just a total likable kind of doofy babyface. And Nia Jax doesn't have that. She just doesn't. It's just the way it is. And I just have a hard time digging the story, and I think that's my biggest problem with it. The match was what it was. It wasn't anything to write home about. Nia Jax won. Cut a horrible promo post-match about anti-bullying. I'm like, yeah, okay. Again, I've watched you try to injure people. Again, your character. I watched your character try to injure people, and it's like, yeah, all right. Okay. Then from there, I think we got Randy Orton challenging Jeff Hardy for the United States Championship. I mean, my God. Is there any wrestler on the roster that goes through the motions more than Randy Orton does? I mean, it feels like he's just sleepwalking through his matches now. Like, if I watch a Randy Orton match, I know exactly what I'm going to get. Just the typical Randy Orton formula stuff. And it's one of those things where I hear Randy Orton's, how critical he is of independent wrestling. And, criticizing the dives and all that. And I don't necessarily disagree with him. I just think that, because a lot of times indie wrestling can get too spotty. It's like, dude, you got to have that emotion. Emotion more than the moves. I'll watch. There's a reason why I will go back and watch Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3 over 95% of what it's out there today. There's a reason for that. It's not about the moves. It's about emotional connection with the audience and whether or not you're able to achieve that. But anyway, sidebar. When I hear Randy Orton make those criticisms, though, I'm like, dude, your matches are boring as fuck. You have no room to be talking about how anybody needs to be working their matches. You are just like boring, robotic, no passion, no energy. You got nothing. You just go out there and do your moves, and that's it. And which is really like, dude, the indie guys, they go out there and do their moves. You go out there and you do your moves. It's just that your moves are boring, and you don't put any energy into it at all whatsoever. The indie guys, at least when they're having a spot fest, they'll play to the crowd or something. Anything, Marty Scurll will act like a heel. I mean, for fuck's sake. Give me something. Orton gives me nothing. So this was a very dry, boring, dull match. Hardy retained. Whoop-de-doo. Don't really care all that much. Then after that, I believe it was it Big Cass and Daniel Bryan? I don't remember the exact order of the matches, obviously. I'll just jump into that one then. I thought the match was okay. It was the second best match on the show by default. Very basic, big versus little match. Daniel Bryan doing his thing. It was what it was. That's really all I have to say. Daniel Bryan went over, which kind of surprised me. I thought maybe Cass would get the win and would continue to get pushed up the ranks on SmackDown, but he lost and then beat up Daniel Bryan post-match, which was fine. Yeah, it was fine. Everything around here was just fine. That's all it was. It was just fine. Then at this point, I guess we got the intermission or whatever you want to call it. This whole segment with Elias where he was doing his concert and then New Day came out and started playing their music and then Rusev came out and interrupted him and then No Way Jose came out for some reason and then Bobby Roode attacked Elias. Now, everything I just described to you, took me like 10 seconds to describe the whole thing. The entire thing felt like it went on for like half an hour. It just went on so long and it had no point, no purpose. It was just to get yucks in, but it wasn't that funny. It was just, oh, hey, look at this other goofy character we have. Oh, hey, look at this other goofy character we have. Oh, wait a minute, we've got another goofy character. And it felt like they threw them out there just to get the pops, especially Rusev. It's like Rusev, what was the point of throwing him out there? Just to get the Rusev Day pop, and that was it. And that's all he did. So, to me, this was just a gigantic waste of time. I think on Twitter I described it as a long walk for a short glass of water. They did all that just to have Bobby Roode beat up Elias. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, Bobby Roode, why is he still a babyface? What are you doing with him? Why? I like Bobby. I've been a fan of Bobby for years. Why is he lame now? What? That's all I got to say about that. Anyway, I believe next was Carmella versus Charlotte for the SmackDown Women's title. They did some things in this match that I liked in the early going where Carmella was just completely outmatched by Charlotte, so she tried to run away and get counted out or whatever. Because on paper, it's like, yeah, that's how it should be worked, where Carmella's the sneaky heel and Charlotte is the pure athlete and the best athlete there is. So, that early portion was fine. And I like the finish, too, where Carmella basically won on a lucky fluke where Charlotte hurt her leg. And then Carmella was able to roll her up and get the pin. I was fine with the finish. I was fine with how it started. All the stuff in the middle, though, just dragged like holy hell, and it just didn't click. And it's one of those matches where I look at it, I'm like, okay, there's a good match in there somewhere, but it just didn't fully click. I don't know if it went too long. I don't know if maybe they needed to dedicate more to Charlotte outclassing Carmella and Carmella getting frustrated and making that the main focal point. I don't know. But the overall product just didn't really click with me. And I'm going to pull up the card because I'm pretty sure I'm missing a match. Let me just, before I jump into the main events, let's pull this up. This is what you get when you don't prepare, boys and girls, and when you put on a dull card like they did last night, your memory's a little fuzzy. So I'm bad, they're bad, everybody's bad. This is just bad. All of this is bad. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Okay, so blah, 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 blah. No, I said all the matches. Okay, I missed the pre-show match, but I didn't even see that, so I'm not even going to bother talking about it. Okay, so I'm perfectly on track. Never mind. I might cut that out of the video, or maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. I'll decide later. Anyway, next up was the WWE Championship No Disqualifications match, AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura. I thought this match was going to be pretty good, and I thought it was going to be better than their WrestleMania match, because their Mania match disappointed some people, but I said, you know what, they didn't build that match up real well. Neither character was as well-defined. There wasn't a well-defined conflict. Then they did the heel turn with Nakamura afterwards. I thought, okay, that's something. Maybe the rematches will be better. Then they did the Greatest Royal Rumble match, which was good, ended on a no contest. I thought, okay, that match was good. We can do something better at the next pay-per-view. Then they finally did a no DQ match. It's like, okay, this should be the show stealer, because it's like, all right, you've got the heat, you've got the conflict, and with all the low blows and the non-finish at the last show, it's like, okay, this is perfectly warranting a no DQ situation. I think it's going to be great. I expected this to be the match of the night. Oh, how wrong I was. I thought this match sucked. Some reviews are being really nice to it. I think that's favoritism towards the guys involved. I think if Roman Reigns had the same match, people would be shitting all over it. This match was awful. I thought it was fucking terrible, and I'm saying that as a fan of both guys. I love AJ Styles. I'm a huge AJ Styles fan, and I love Shinsuke. I thought the match they had at Wrestle Kingdom 10 was amazing, and it's a shame that they just haven't been able to recapture that in the WWE, and I thought this was their chance to do it. And I thought this was the blandest no DQ match I think I've ever seen in my life. And if you've been watching my Clash of Champions and Saturday Night's Main Event streams, you know, or even if you haven't, go back and watch the match that we streamed this past weekend, Ric Flair versus Terry Funk, which was an I Quit match. But it was basically a no DQ match. It was this wild brawl where they were trying to kill each other. Go back and watch Bret Hart and Diesel at Survivor Series 1995, where they came up with all these creative things to do, like Bret tying Diesel in the corner, and in my opinion, the greatest executed table spot in the history of wrestling. You know, stuff like that. Very good no DQ match. Even like the Hogan-Orndorff matches. I mean, they went in there and acted like they were trying to beat the shit out of each other. Those weren't even no DQ. Which is why most of their matches ended in DQs, because they were just so wild and crazy brawls. This was so mundane and just going through the motions and slow-paced and dull and boring and went on way too long. And I'm like, what is going on here? The only things about this match that really clicked was the chair spot where AJ threw the chair at Nakamura and it bounced off and hit AJ right back in the face, which looked nasty. But it appears AJ's okay, which I'm happy about that. But and then the low blows that they worked in at the end. But other than that, I thought this was a very, very dull, disappointing, dry, boring, just terrible match that didn't accomplish anything. Especially with the finish where, and again, here's the thing. I don't mind doing a draw finish. I don't even mind doing the count-out finish the way they did it. Because I think, you know, in my entire time as a wrestling fan, like the double count-out inside the ring, I think I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen it happen. And oddly enough, I saw it happen with Zayn and Owens a couple weeks ago on the Post-Mania Raw. Now it's like, oh, is this going to be a regular thing now, like the in-ring count-out? Because that, I mean, it almost never happens. And I've been watching this shit forever, and I've hardly ever seen it happen. So I don't mind doing that because it makes it more dramatic for future matches. Oh, God, this could be the end of the match. Because before it was just a cheap way for the, the Pavlovian dogs in the audience to count 10 along with the referee, not really believing that the match could possibly end. Now that part of it I like. The problem, though, is that this is a no DQ match. I know they didn't specifically call out countouts in this, but aren't countouts basically a form of disqualification? It's like, it's always been kind of understood that no DQ matches are also no countouts. And throughout the match, when they were outside the ring, and I know like both men are down inside the ring and outside the ring brawling are two slightly different things, but when they were outside the ring, I don't remember the referee trying to count them out. So it just... I don't mind the finish. It was the wrong time to do it. And of course, they're throwing so many low blows at each other that now it's just kind of becoming a parody of itself. So that's not really working for me either. So we're going to get another match. I don't know why. I don't like it when they do a gimmick match and then they cheat the gimmick. I think that really... it's like doing a steel cage match, which is supposed to prevent outside interference, and then you get like a shitload of outside interference, like that Cena-Ziggler cage match that I hated so much. Sometimes you can get away with it, but other times it doesn't work. And sometimes if you do it too much, it just gets ridiculous. And this is one of those cases where it's like, I feel like they kind of cheated the gimmick here. So, yeah, and I think the finish kind of pissed people off and kind of like took them out of the rest of the show, as if the crowd wasn't already kind of dead throughout most of the show. But yeah, I mean, AJ Nakamura, they really fell flat here. I thought it was terrible, and I don't like admitting that. I really don't, but it was. It was a bad match. I'm sorry. But it is what it is. So, moving right along from there, we get this tag match, and it was at this point with the tag match that I realized the show was going on. I think the tag match started around 10:45, and I was like, holy shit, this show's gonna go long. And it went long. Oh, good God in heaven, did it go long. The tag match went about, 8 to 10 minutes, which is about 5 minutes longer than it needed to go. And the main event, well, I'll get to the main event, but the main event. But the tag match was just filler. It was a bumper before the main event. Sami Zayn acted weird the whole time. I didn't care. I wasn't invested in what they were doing. It was Strowman and Lashley versus Zayn and Owens. Match was bad. Didn't care. It was just anything that happened after that AJ Nakamura match was just delaying time before I could go to bed. So this match went on way too long, served no purpose, and I just didn't care. Then we got Samoa Joe versus Roman Reigns as the closer. I don't even know what to say, to be perfectly honest. As bad as AJ Nakamura was, and as terrible as I thought that match was, this match was even worse. Mainly because of how the crowd reacted to it. They were just... oh my God, they just... if it's not clear as day that the WWE audience just does not give a shit about Roman Reigns, I don't know what other evidence you need. He took the beat down pre-match, and the entire time Samoa Joe's beating him down and using rest holds on him and everything, and you just know he's going to make his comeback. So it's and he's not a babyface that's likable, so people just don't care. And they didn't care that was the story they were trying to tell. They didn't care that, that was the plan. They just were bored and sick of the idea of Roman Reigns Supermaning, punching, and, spearing his way to victory. Nobody cared. And that audience, you could see people in the audience walking out. There are videos that have leaked online of the audience walking out. Pockets of the audience, it wasn't a full revolt where the whole crowd walked, but it was a lot of people were leaving early. The fans were chanting anything they wanted, from Rusev Day to CM Punk. I believe I heard a beat the traffic chant. I believe there was a Be Elite chant for the Bullet Club at one point. It was just it was a fiasco. It was terrible, just absolutely terrible. And every time there was a kick out, you could just sense the frustration of the audience. It's oh my God, can this just end so we can go already? My God. And I was sitting there, it's dude, send me the fuck home. For the love of God, let's wrap this up. You've gone too long. And I think the match went 20 minutes or so, which is way longer than it needed. Didn't work as a main event and was just indicative of how the WWE audience is just not invested in Roman Reigns, no matter how hard the WWE tries. That's just the thing. And I've heard people comment on it. I know Jericho, and I love Jericho to death, but he said something to the effect of, "Oh, people boo Roman Reigns because it's a cool thing to do, and if they turn him heel, they'll just cheer him anyway." It's like, what's wrong with that? Like, turn him heel, and it might just save his career, for crying out loud. Because as I've said before, there's kind of a precedent for it in wrestling where, if you turn a guy who's not working as a face heel, you either get the hottest heel on the planet, which the example of that would be like a Hollywood Hogan, or you get the fans cheer him, and then you get the reaction that you wanted in the first place. Case in point would be The Rock, or The New Day, or Edge. Edge was actually kind of both, where they turned him heel and he became like the hottest heel with the Rated R Superstar stuff, and then eventually the fans just fell in love with him, especially when they put him up against Cena. So they kind of got both results out of Edge. Either one's a win-win, I think. So there's really no downside to turning him heel. And the fans, it's not that it's the cool thing to do to boo him. The fans don't like to be told who to like. They like to pick their favorites. And it's funny, I've been reading JR's book, Jim Ross, as if I need to tell a bunch of wrestling fans who JR is. And he's talking about his time in Mid-South with Bill Watts, and that's where I am in the book at this point. And they talk about when JYD left the promotion and how they basically lost their biggest star. And, the fans love JYD, and Bill Watts had a hard time replacing him, and they didn't immediately gravitate to the guys that they picked as JYD's replacements, because you can't just manufacture another JYD. JYD is JYD, and he got over because he has that natural charisma, and because he's so easy to like, and whether he's the greatest worker in the world or not, immaterial. He connects with the audience in a very natural, believable way. And the guys that they got to replace JYD couldn't fill his shoes in that regard. You can't manufacture that love and that admiration from the audience. You've just got to, it's like, the big difference between Roman Reigns and someone like a Stone Cold Steve Austin. You just got to go with the hot hand. You got to go with the guy that the fans do love and they do respect and they do kind of gravitate to. And Austin, thank God Austin came up at the time when WCW was kicking their asses, because I wonder if they weren't in that position, would they have ever pushed Stone Cold Steve Austin? I have my doubts. Even though it was clear as day that that's where they needed to go. He's just so unlike the prototypical babyface that Vince loves to push that I think Vince was hesitant to do it anyway, even with the position they were in. But I also think, like, if WCW wasn't just trouncing them in the ratings, I don't think they would have run with him either. I've always wondered about that. Like, what would have happened if WCW wasn't around when Stone Cold Steve Austin was around in the WWE? He probably wouldn't have gotten the big run. Because Vince would have just kept doing what he was doing and do what he always likes to do. So, there's got to be some level of, the fans pick their favorites. And, this match is, and I'm not saying Roman's a bad worker. I'm not saying that. I actually think he's gotten better as a worker. It's not that. It's just a complete failure to connect with the audience. And that's something that the WWE hasn't figured out, and that's something that Roman hasn't figured out how he needs to do that. And it's something that, again, it's not always things that you can create. Sometimes it just happens by accident when somebody gets over, like a Daniel Bryan. It's just a really bad situation, but Vince is just going to do whatever he wants. So, hey, whatever. Actually, Monday Night Raw has started while I was filming this video. I'm not watching Raw. I need a break. It's one of those situations like, dude, after last night's show, I need a break. I can't watch WWE for at least a few weeks because I just need to get the bad taste of that show out of my mouth. But yeah, Backlash 2018 was remarkably bad. I hope to God it's the worst pay-per-view of 2018 from any promotion, because no wrestling fan deserves to be subjected to something like that. It was an awful, awful show where just nothing seemed to click. Again, the only thing on the show that the only match on the show that's worth going out of your way to see is the IC title match, which, in a way was a bad opener because it kind of stole the thunder from the rest of the show. But it was a great match on its own, so it worked. And Daniel Bryan versus Big Cass was okay for what it was and what they accomplished. So everything else just kind of fell flat for me. And then you get the two main events, which were absolutely dreadful. Some people could complain, it's like, why didn't they just close with AJ Nakamura? And I'm like, would that have made it any better? That match was sucked too. I mean, good God. Yeah, and it's to compare it to Battleground, that show I expected to be bad because you had Cena and Rusev, which I didn't give a shit about, and you had that Punjabi prison match, which I don't like that gimmick. Orton and Jinder having their third match, a series of matches I didn't enjoy and didn't care about, so I expected that show to be bad. But this one's like, look, you've got AJ Nakamura and you've got internet darling Samoa Joe in the main event with Roman Reigns, who's supposed to be your top guy, and both matches tanked super, super hard. And the fact that the show ran long didn't help. The fact that they included that stupid segment with Elias didn't help because that only extended the show. I was like, you know what? Would we have ended on time if they had cut that and not done that? Fuck. Fucking hell. So, anyway, yeah, I thought Backlash was an absolutely dreadful show. Just absolutely terrible. And if this is what we have to look forward to from the dual brand pay-per-views, oy vey. Is all I got. So, yeah, that's all I have for this video. Just wanted to come on here and just completely shit on Backlash because God knows this show deserved it. So, I have a video planned later for the week, and I'm going to keep doing my Clash of Champions Saturday night's main event streams. Next one should be on Saturday as well. I don't know if it's going to be during the morning or during the evening like this past one was. That's something that's going to... It depends on how my schedule goes, so we'll find out. But that is all I have for you now. So y'all have a happy Monday. For those of you watching Raw, enjoy it. For those of you who were tortured by Backlash last night, I'm sorry. I know I didn't put you through that show, but I feel like somebody should apologize to you, and it might as well be me. But that is all I have for you in this video, so y'all enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you later.